Okay,
Absolutely. Yep. All right, cool. That sounds great.
perfect. Then we are jumping in five, four, three, two, one. Hey, everybody, guess what? It's Steve Fretzin, and you're here on the Be That Lawyer podcast. Hopefully, you're listening every week, twice a week, to continue to get great ideas and takeaways that are going to help you be that lawyer, confident, organized, and a skilled rainmaker. Why are you being shy telling people about this show? Let's think. You just want to keep all the good stuff to yourself. That's very selfish of you. Don't do that. All right. Right, Kyle? We need people to share the love. That's what this world's all about, right?
Absolutely. It's all about giving. You give
It's
what
all
you,
about.
you get what you give. So
Yeah. I mean, so listen, you might not be given enough to enough people, but think about like if there's a streaming show that you really love and you're watching it like religiously, you tell everybody about it. And so this show should be the same way. So give us a kind review and tell others about it, and let's spread the word and spread the love about Be That Lawyer, everybody. And we'll do that, and we'll continue to bring you great guests like I have today. And Kyle, welcome to the show. Good to see you, man.
great to see you. Thanks for having me, Steve.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot of fun today. We're going to get in deep in the marketing space and give a lot of great ideas to you, the listening audience. As we enjoy doing, we're going to start with our quote of the show: "Be kind to people, be ruthless to systems." And Mike, I don't know who's Michael Brooks. I don't know Michael Brooks.
He's actually a political commentator. Did a lot with Rolling Stone.
Okay.
He is no longer with us. And I
Oh,
think
okay.
that quote is much more applicable to, in his mind, political systems, but I kind of lift it and apply it to business because I think that you should be kind to the people both on your team and your clients. But if we're really doing the best thing by our team and our clients, we're being ruthless with the systems we use to provide value for our clients. It helps our team work better, and it helps our clients succeed to a greater extent. So I think delineating those things is important and kind of sets how I think about our culture at PMP.
Kind of wonder like if be ruthless to systems, if that means like being like not nice to systems or be ruthless in following systems. That's the way
I
I
think
want to take it.
Yeah, well, I mean, you need to pressure test systems the right way. So, like, if a system is broken, maybe it's not the right
Mm,
system. You should be pressure testing these things. But then once you find something, that works, that's hard to break, yeah, you should be adhering closely to that system to make sure it works. But I think
yeah,
that, like, particularly with what we do, it's constantly changing. Like what worked for our clients 3 years ago is not going to necessarily work next year. So if we're
yeah,
not pressure testing what we're doing and our assumptions, then we might be leaving something on the table and
yeah.
putting on blinders that we shouldn't be.
The interesting thing is that we have a system for how we brush our teeth in the morning or how we get dressed in the order that we do it. And we usually do it the same way. And we have systems for business development that I'm teaching every day, as opposed to just winging it and doing something different or maybe improperly each time. Putting on your pants first and then your underwear, probably not a good idea. So I think the power of a good system is really critical, whether it's business development, marketing, or how you run a trial. I mean, having a good system is it. Listen, man, I'm excited that you're here. Everybody listening, Kyle Hebenstreit is the CEO of Practice Made Perfect. And give us a little bit of a flavor of your background, too, how you got into legal.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, as a kid, I was raised by two lawyers. My mom's a judge, my dad's an attorney, my sister's a former prosecutor. I chose
My
to go
apologies. Holy
Yeah,
mackerel.
so, like
Surrounded.
my debate skills and oratory skills are well tested over the dinner table each night. But a pursuit and interest in creativity took me to USC, where I studied film and business, and I worked in the entertainment industry at a company called Skydance Media for several years. I started in creative development and then sort of transitioned more to the business side as we were growing. And that's when my kind of interest in entrepreneurship was activated. And I felt like I was deficient in some skills and experiences that would help me, live out some future vision for myself. And so I went to business school and then subsequently worked as a management consultant in Deloitte's consulting practice in Chicago. And I did a lot of media and telecommunications and technology work there, and largely how people or how companies should be using audience and consumer data to enrich their media products, which includes advertising in a lot of ways. So I was there for a couple of years, and then an old entrepreneurship professor put me in touch with an investment firm in Chicago that had a little bit of an entrepreneurial DNA to it. And I created a partnership with this firm called Next Gen Growth Partners that focuses on buying really great small to medium sized B2B businesses, installing executives like myself as a CEO, and invest in those businesses to grow over the long term. And I worked with them to identify a great business in legal services because I think the market is sort of behind other industries and can take learnings from those other industries. And if you are providing effective guidance to a lawyer client, you can sort of stay a step ahead of the competition if you're smart about it. And so I
Okay.
found PMP, and that was probably almost, yeah, 3 years ago, and acquired
Okay.
PMP in March of 2022 and have been leading PMP ever since.
Now I want to bring something up that because it's based off of something you said, but you mentioned Deloitte and in the news recently, KPMG just started doing legal services in Arizona where it can be there's non-lawyer owned opportunities there, and then there's a number of other states where that exists as well. I mean, how do you see that changing the landscape of legal as it continues to expand out in different states and just having the big four involved in that?
I think I think it's too early to tell. I think early, if you had asked me that same question a couple of years ago, I think a lot of the intelligence was around institutional capital being injected primarily in like mass torts and mass tort marketing, and that was sort of the nature of conversation around the ABS legislation in Arizona and some other states. I think that overlooked where the real influence is going to come from in transitioning legislation countrywide, and it's going to be the KPMGs and the Deloittes and large national and multinational professional services organizations who have an economic incentive to want to provide legal services that are going to really make a meaningful dent in changing legislation. So today, if you were to ask me, I would say I think that change is inevitable. I think the real sort of question that's too early to tell on is the pace of change. I think it's going to happen probably over closer to like a period of a decade than a period over a couple years from now.
Hmm.
But I think that it's already affecting in some ways how our clients do business and how we do business with our clients. In some instances, private equity firms and institutional capital kind of become the clients of marketing firms. And that's just a really interesting shift. It also places pressures on all law firms to be more professionalized in their operations and treat their law firms like businesses because the competitive set is becoming more and more sophisticated and you have to respond to that accordingly. So
Yeah.
too early to tell, but like a very fundamental trend that is going to shape the future of legal.
Well, and I've been bringing this up on the show for a while now that, when you start getting organizations that get the business side at another level and provides services, in other fields, and they move into legal. And what if you start getting Amazon and Google and even some of the, that just have unlimited money that buy up, Dentons or buy up, some of the bigger players, and
Mhm.
just absorb them into their behemoth. I mean, it's going to be very difficult for people to compete. So I'm using that as a point of reference to say, hey, lawyers, you may not want to play ball with those guys. You may want to go out on your own. You may want to get into a smaller firm, but you're going to need the marketing and the business development and the business acumen to compete, even if you are in or out of that space. And don't wait 10 years. I think you have to start building your knowledge and client base and business development acumen now. So that's kind
Yeah.
of my spin on it, but I'm not wrong, but again, to your point, the timing of it is when and I'm just like, well, we can wait and find out, or you can get ahead of it.
Yeah, I think a good comparison here too is not just so there's what's going to happen at kind of like the AmLaw 200 level, but our business is focused on sort of boutique consumer-facing law firms. And those small businesses, I think they're going to undergo a transformation, assuming this trend continues, that looks a lot like what you've seen in sort of dentistry or optometry or physicians' offices, where you have large private equity firms that come in and acquire individual practices, and they find
Hmm.
back office systems that work, and they effectively put all of these individual businesses onto this backbone that's maybe going to have a common case management system and intake function and things of that nature. And that's where they get sort of their return on investment, is rolling up, is the private equity term,
Right.
these different practices. And so that's another area that pushes you to have a smart operation, but also provides an exit opportunity for a law firm that maybe they didn't have before. If you're thinking about retiring, you may actually end up exiting your business and selling to a large institutional, and having kind of a bit of a windfall, if you will, kind of at the end of your career, your practice, that may not have existed in sort of previous generations. So that's
Yeah.
another application. But I think the lesson is, be smart about your business operations and how you think about competition, regardless of where you are in the market, because the institutional capital is going to shape that and apply pressure that's, going to force people to evolve. And to your point, you should get ahead of it instead of wait for it to happen to you.
Yeah. So I mean, we're talking about some trends in legal, but I would like to flip the switch because your expertise is in, yes, in business and systems, but also in marketing. And I think I'd be curious to hear what you're seeing. And I'm kind of, very happy that I'm interviewing you and interviewing a lot of people, as well as working with lawyers all over the world to understand what's going on in the marketing space. But what's your spin on what's going on in the field of play and legal marketing specifically?
Sure. And I guess just to define this, PMP, or Practice Made Perfect, like, we offer marketing services again for boutique, primarily consumer facing law firms. And that sort of is different again from other parts of the legal market. And it's worth drawing that distinction. But what we see a lot of is, first of all, increasing competition. A lot of our clients are focused in personal injury. And we just released a white paper on this, and we hypothesize a couple of themes as to why there's increasing competition. But at a high level, if you were aggressively advertising your law firm, say 10 to 15 years ago, you likely had a lot of low hanging fruit and were able to grow your practice pretty well in your market, and success breeds competition. So we're seeing those existing firms who have grown to be sizable firms over the last 10 to 15 years, attracting another set of smaller players who are, again, seeing kind of the playbook of advertising for their law firm and looking to grow. Meanwhile, the sort of supply, if you will, of cases is relatively flat. We don't want to, and we don't manufacture accidents, for instance. It's kind of, the trend line is fairly consistent. And so addressable cases kind of remain the same, but the advertising dollars and number of firms chasing those cases increases. And that's just sort of a simple supply and demand function that creates competitive tension for what we do. So that's one sort of big trend that we see. Another is channel fragmentation. And what I mean by that is, similarly, if you started, 10, 15 years ago, you could be on kind of daytime broadcast TV and do pretty well. Over time, you see SEO, pay-per-click, local services ads, which is a Google ad product, and others kind of proliferate. We're seeing an acceleration of that with new AI enriched search engines. We see that with social media and others. So what might have been one sort of TV budget is now split across a number of different platforms. And you have to be really smart about where you're investing your marketing dollars, as opposed to, focus on the 1 to 2, big channels that are going to kind of get your brand name out there. And it takes a little bit more elbow grease and time and attention. But there's still a tremendous opportunity if you can do that right.
Okay, I'm with you, and I'm getting what you're saying, and we're taking these big budgets that go into one thing, like let's say TV or billboards, and we're then proliferating it along with in a bunch of different areas. Is social media marketing now and in the future kind of where things are headed? I mean, that seems to be like, YouTube and LinkedIn and all the different channels, whether that's advertising or whether that's actual, sort of, the just the what's it called? Like where you don't spend the money, you just do it naturally.
Organic.
Or yeah,
Organic.
yeah, that took me a minute to get to it, but yeah,
Yeah.
thank you for your
Yeah.
help. But yeah, the organic stuff that you're producing and putting up on there, is that happening, and is that the future of where investments should be made?
Yes, is the short answer.
Okay.
Earlier when I said, legal might follow other industries and that
Mm,
provides opportunities. It's not new to be doing effective organic or paid social strategies in other industries, but it's a very unsaturated part of the market for what we focus on for our clients. And so breaking that into a couple different categories. One, I think, is focused on who your audience is. I've seen some really smart attorneys, some of whom are our clients, spending a lot of time doing organic LinkedIn content that's really focused on driving referrals for their businesses. And that's a way of it. You're not putting advertising dollars behind it, but you're routinely posting smart, compelling, relevant pieces of content, either text or video or image on your LinkedIn profile. It costs time, certainly, but it doesn't cost money. And if you're staying top of mind for your professional network, either in your region or just, practice area, you can help augment your referral traffic that way. That's one really smart thing that lawyers can do that's relatively low cost. But even from a paid advertising standpoint, Meta, which includes Facebook and Instagram, has a really robust advertising platform that allows you to create various campaigns at scale that kind of replace or augment, depending on how you look at it, like billboards. So if you think about it from an advertising, or excuse me, brand awareness advertising perspective, you can get in front of a lot of people in a unique way with unique different types of content. And a lot of folks in law firms aren't necessarily doing that or haven't done that historically. So we think there's a lot of potential in both the organic and the paid side on social media, certainly.
okay. So there's people listening right now that are big firm attorneys, they're solos, they're personal injury, they're corporate, they're doing all these different things. What are some practical marketing tips that a law firm or an individual lawyer can do to sort of improve its competitiveness when they're maybe not doing anything, like they're just kind of, just doing the law?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important to identify kind of your firm's strategy first. What's the type of firm you're part of? You just listed a bunch of different categories that are going to have different, corporate strategies, if you will, but then definitely marketing strategies. But I think at a high level, you want to understand the market to which you're marketing. So I would advise, thinking about 5 clients you've worked with in the past year or two that you feel represent sort of your sweet spot as a firm. There was a really positive relationship and likely a positive outcome for the client and the firm. You want to start shaping who's the archetype of client I'm going after and how did they find me? How did those people
Mm,
actually find me? And try to deduce some learnings from that sort of client journey and that experience working with that client. Because you want to shape who am I speaking to in a crowded world, and how did the people I spoke to in the past hear my message? So I think that's very clear of understanding which clients you're going after, and then you want to define your competition. I think this is a thing that a lot of law firms don't necessarily know how to think about. And again, we just wrote a white paper on this, so it's a bit top of mind for me. But you want a lot of people think sort of the 800-pound gorilla is their competition when they're really kind of a minnow, just because the 800-pound gorilla is in everybody's face. But if you're thinking about navigating a part of the pond, I might be stretching a metaphor too far here, but if you're thinking about navigating a certain part of the pond, you want to be clear about who's really going after that area, as opposed to I need to, face off against the biggest guy in my market. You want to define who are going after those clients I've identified as attractive to me for the cases that I'm really good at managing. And that's your competitive set. I think sometimes people get wrapped up, particularly because a lot of times these are local businesses and lawyers know the lawyers in the other law firm, and there's a personal relationship that creates an emotional tie to business decisions that can kind of cloud judgment on where you chase opportunity and resources. But if you take a bit more of a dispassionate view of like those firms that are your actual competition, I think it'll clarify what you should be doing from a marketing standpoint.
Yeah, and Kyle, I just want to mention before we go any further that what I really like about what you're saying is you're not telling people to jump in and say, this is the hot thing, go do it. Or this is where my people are spending money, go do it. You're saying take a step back, identify your best clients, client personas. Who are the people that you would like to work with, who are going to pay you, who are going to appreciate you, and then look at your competition and recognize, who they really are and what they're doing. And I'm not saying you have to like focus on your competition, but it's good to know what they're doing and who they are and what they're going with it. And I think before you get into investing money and time and energy, to take the effort, a little bit of effort and time to do those first things, I think is so wise and important. And many lawyers, I think, skip it and they just go right to what's the hot marketing trend or what's the random act of marketing I'm going to do today.
Yep, absolutely. We talk about random acts of marketing a lot.
It's been mentioned on the show a ton, so I use it. But it's frustrating because there's so much money that should not be spent because I want to have this tchotchke, or I want to have that billboard, or I want to have what someone else has instead of what I should be doing to figure it out for myself.
Absolutely. You're solving someone else's problem instead of thinking about your own problem.
Yeah, I love that.
And right. The reality is good marketing is intentional and long-term. That's another thing is, we live in a sort of tight feedback, low patience sort of world. And the idea is I want leads today. And there's a lot of companies out there that'll sell you leads. Whether those leads are actually compensable cases and good for your firm is a whole other discussion. The firms that really are successful are those that define, what do I want out of my law firm as a business and as a lifestyle? And then that crafts their overall business strategy. And only after that do you really start framing your marketing strategy. I think people kind of move into marketing without thinking about where they want the ship to go. And thus they do a bunch of sort of disorganized testing the waters that aren't ultimately productive. The ones that are good take a long-term view, have curiosity, and most importantly, have discipline about sticking to that long-term view. And that's how you need to be thinking
So we have taken the time to evaluate the best buyers. We've evaluated our competition. Then how do we make a decision and execute on what we should do for ourselves and for our firms?
Yeah. So, I mean, it really practically comes down to budget allocation. We think about it in terms of a percentage of revenue. And that percentage of revenue depends on where you want to be next year and 3 years from now. It's going to be a larger percentage, and you're going to have less cash flow and less margin if you want to aggressively grow. It's going to be a smaller percentage if you want to moderately grow. So that's, again, where the overall strategy comes in and feeds the smart marketing budget. But based on that, we have a couple kind of starting blocks of, if you have a modest budget, where should you really focus those marketing dollars? And then you can build up to the sort of larger ticket items like TV. I think jumping into the larger ticket items out of the gates is another thing that people do wrong without getting kind of their website, their reputation management, their community engagement, those types of foundational marketing activities in a secure place, and they get kind of too top heavy, and they're not driving kind of like the near term or long term results that they want.
Well, and the other thing, and my audience and my clients know this about me because I talk about it all the time. It's like there are two sides of a mountain, and you want to climb both sides at the same time: the marketing side and the business development side. And so I think if you just do one and not the other, and that can go both ways, you're not really getting the full opportunity and ROI that you could be getting. So for example, I'm out helping my clients with business development, growing their law practices, and the reputation and the word of mouth, that's all happening. That's great. But while that's going on, I'm all over social media. I've got the podcast, I'm writing books, I've got articles for Above the Law, like all this other stuff that's backing up, validating, and adding on to the work that I'm putting out on the ground. Talk to that, because I think sometimes lawyers don't understand how important it is to hit both sides at the same time.
Absolutely. And so I mentioned, community engagement as
you sure did.
But I also think about legal intake. Again, a lot of our firms are driving a high volume of inbound interest. And if you don't know what to do when that inbound interest comes to your firm, you're going to be wasting marketing dollars. And it's
Mhm.
really operationally challenging to get that right for legal because for a variety of reasons, but primarily because cases are so nuanced. There's a high degree of empathy involved in engaging with clients in their first touch point with the firm. And that's really difficult to execute at scale for law firms. But it's huge if you get it right in terms of maximizing the investment dollars that you have within your marketing. So
Yeah.
I would say from a business development standpoint, we think about how you're receiving kind of inbound interest, but also how are you as a managing partner, and to the extent you've got sort of more junior attorneys or staff, how are you empowering them to kind of get out into the market and do sort of physical world things of going to events, networking, doing legal clinics, partnering with local universities, and establishing your credibility that way, and engaging with people who might be your clients, but are more likely going to be positive sort of referral sources or words of mouth contacts
Yeah.
for your firm.
Let's wrap up with a question I have, and I've asked a number of folks in legal marketing this question. I'd love to get your take on it. There are a lot of people doing what you do, all right? And there's a lot of good actors, and there's even more bad actors. And I don't mean they're nefariously bad. I think they're new or they're bad or they just don't get it. They don't have the same experience that other people have. What should let's just take, use an example of a small law firm. What should they be looking for? What questions should they be asking? What should they be doing to validate that a marketing organization is a good fit?
Yeah. I think one question that we don't get asked very often, but it's something that we think about operationally, is the ratio of client to, we call them client success managers, but our account representative.
Hmm.
What is that ratio? Some firms are going to have a massive ratio of clients to individual managing those accounts, and it's really difficult to create a good strategy or manage quality control when that ratio is so far off base. And so you want to make sure you've got somebody who's regularly looking at your account and looking after your firm. And you can only do that if that person has the right capacity to do so. Um, so that's one operational question that doesn't get asked a lot that I would advise. And for what it's worth, we try to aim for about 8 to 12 clients per point of contact. We try to keep that sort of boutique model. Larger agencies can go up to 50 to close to 100 of clients per account person, depending on sort of the nature of the services that they offer. So I think that's important. I also think social proof in marketing is important. And I think having referral conversations. We don't hire anybody at our company without doing at least 2 reference checks. And we position ourselves as an outsourced marketing department for our clients. So while we're not a full-time employee of our clients' firms, they should think about us as though we are an employee and do reference checks on us with our clients.
Yeah.
We're free with our client information. We'll set up introductions, but our clients are free to contact any of our clients and just ask about their experience. And I would encourage folks who are shopping to take the extra time to speak to other clients of these vendors.
Yeah, that's really important. I have lawyers that want to work with me come and audit a class, like sit through my 90-minute weekly class, meet the clients in the room, and it might draw out questions. It might draw out, engagement. It might draw out skepticism. That's all good because it's helping you learn, is this a good fit or not? And then talking to references, absolutely. I try to get people in front of 1 or 2 references. Should they also be asking about how the communication is? Because I think one of the biggest concerns with marketing is you pay the money, it's, 5,000 a month. And what's the level of communication and what's the level of reporting and how are you getting feedback and improvements and knowing that this is working? How are you guys dealing with that?
Great question. I wish we were in a place that's not currently where we are. We're kind of in the middle of a bit of a transformation, going through kind of like what can our clients expect in the first 30, 60, 90 days,
Hmm.
and then thereafter. So We do now have an established sort of playbook or activation in place of here's what 30, 60, 90 days. These are the KPIs that we're looking at. These are the touch points you'll have with us in this process. And then we transition to quarterly business reviews, annual presentations. We have monthly reporting meetings. So we've got live dashboards built for each of our clients. And so we'll either meet with our clients if they want to, or if they're too busy, we provide a recording and an executive summary of what are the KPIs we're monitoring and what are we seeing within their marketing campaign at that given time. So we're getting better about documenting and setting those expectations of this is what you're about to experience working with PMP. I can't say it was always that way, but I think we're in a pretty good spot now. But I think that's key. And that's another sort of adjacent concept to how many people are my point of contact managing, because it's going to give that person more bandwidth to be open and free with communication, and hopefully the type of communication channel that you as a law firm client are looking for, whether that's email, call, text.
Yeah. What's the best communication style? I think that's really, really important. Let's wrap up though with our game-changing book, The Hard Thing About Hard Things. That's been mentioned on the show before. I think it's really, really great. Ben Horowitz, will you talk just for 30 seconds about what that book means to you, why it's your game-changing book?
Yeah, absolutely. I think at its core, it's about the resilience required to be an effective entrepreneur and the reality of challenges faced as an entrepreneur. And it is tough. I think of our clients all as entrepreneurs. They're betting on themselves and their sort of economic future in law firms, and they're faced with a ton of challenges. And it's not for the faint of heart. And so for me, it provided anecdotes and sort of validation of narratives of what other people go through in this journey, which can sometimes feel a bit isolating. As an entrepreneur, I thought it just sort of emboldened me in terms of the risks I want to take, the challenges that I've got the fortitude to stand up against, and just kind of the length of time that I'm going to be doing this, and then the resilience required to do it well. And I think that, has made my life and my sort of mental happiness better and how I relate to this journey. But I think it has made me better at being an entrepreneur as well. And so it's really kind of like an autobiographical tale about Ben Horowitz's journey. But that's kind of how it really related to me and spoke to me, because it is a journey of resilience, and that was important for me.
Awesome. Appreciate that. And check out that book, The Hard Thing About Hard Things, everybody. Take a moment to thank our sponsors. Of course, the PimCon coming up with our friend Chris Dreyer out in October in Scottsdale, Arizona. And then the Law Her podcast. Check out my friend Sonia Palmer and that podcast whenever you get a chance. Kyle, if people want to get in touch with you, they want to hear more about PMP and say, hey, I need to talk to this guy. What are the best digits for them to reach you?
Yeah, they can either email me at Kyle, Kyle, at pmpmg.com, pmpmg.com, or they can call my cell, 317-410-9640. Even if you're not in the market looking for marketing services, I always find conversations with attorneys about what they're doing in their practice enriching and interesting. So feel free to reach out, and would love to talk with anybody who'd like to speak.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show and really having an honest and straightforward conversation about legal and marketing, and giving some great tips and ideas for folks that are maybe doing those random acts of marketing, or maybe they're not doing jack and they need some encouragement to get out there and start putting themselves forward. And as we talked about earlier, hey, these big corporations and other folks are going to get involved in legal that are trained assassins at growing business, and you're either kind of part of the game or you're out sitting on the sidelines. So anyway, thanks again. Don't mean to get on a soapbox, but I do sometimes. But I appreciate you, and I appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Steve. This is fun.
Yeah, good times, man. And thank you everybody for spending some time and hanging out with Kyle and I for a little over half an hour, talking shop and working to help you be that lawyer, confident, organized, and a skilled rainmaker. Take care of everybody. Be safe. Be well. We'll talk again soon.